Hello, welcome to the video for our fun Wednesday stream, random endless rooms using level streaming. So I had someone comment on one of my videos. He wants to see how we could do a randomly generated map with pre-made segments. Basically, levels will be rooms. Each of these rooms will act like a segment. The first room is always the same, and each time the player leaves the room, he wants the game to randomly choose another room and then unload the last one. And he wants to make it where it was endless and using blueprints. So I went ahead and fired up an example for this. Let me open it up. I will run through it and then we'll explain it. Ignore all the awesome programmer art because, well, it's awesome programmer art. If you look at the top right, you will see our level outliner. You can currently see what rooms are loaded. Right now it's room start and room 4. I'm currently in room start right here, which is our default one. When we walk into room 4, the door will close. Any doors connected to this room will spawn a room that's connected, and then basically the previous room will disappear. So if we were to walk into this room, you notice on the right we have 1, 4, and 5. We'll walk in. We should have 4 rooms that will end up being visible. And if you notice, I have 3 options of rooms. I can go into the rooms, and then it'll close, and then it will hide the previous rooms, and the next room will become available to go through. And this will continue on and on and on for as long as you would like. So let's get an overview of how we did this. In our persistent map, we have nothing. We have our basic setup. That's what our persistent map is used for. We then have individual rooms, which are our spawning levels, and then we have our starting room, which I'll go ahead and open up here, and we'll zoom into to check it out. This is just a basic room. I've set up a few things that control each room. I have a room manager. It has a trigger connected to it to go ahead and close the door once you walk into it. Then I have a door that basically, when triggers, when you walk into it, will open up. So if we open up one of our example rooms, we can see how they're actually set up to be working. I set it up kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You have a connecting piece and then you have a connector piece. So in this one, for example, I have a connector piece, which is right here, which is our entrance anchor. Everything is parented to this. So look what happens. Everything can be rotated. Everything can be moved, all from this one item. So if we were to adjust this entrance anchor, then the entire room itself adjusts as well, which makes it perfect when we need to basically snap pieces together. So we have our entrance anchor, and then every exit has an exit anchor. Basically, once it spawns everything in, the entrance anchors are snapped to the exit anchors on the room, and then all of our rooms fit together. Since everything is designed like this, the exits can be in any of the positions, and the entrances will snap right into place and orient and position themselves properly because it uses one basic master object. So once the player walks in, we have our our room manager, which manages the entire room. This is our brains of each room. Connected to that, we have a trigger. This trigger, basically, once we walk into it, is what controls the door to the previous room closing, as well as all of the other rooms spawning for every exit that we have set up. The room manager has a section for setting up. It has the exit anchors, which is 1 anchor per exit. So, for example, we were to go to room 5, and we pulled up our room manager. You'll notice the room manager has 3 exit anchors, as we have 3 exits for this room. Exit levels is just a list of names that list what rooms we can actually connect to. Let me go ahead and rename this to capital while we're here. Okay, so basically I'm in room 5, so we want to be able to go into room 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6 from this room as an applicable spawned room to be connected to any of these exit anchors. You could theme things, for example. Maybe you only wanted ice levels to come off of this one, so you would set up your ice levels as your only spawnable exits. So that allows a little bit of customization. Under that, we have the entrance anchor, which is basically the anchor that the item that everything is anchored to. That is our entrance of our room. So we just set it here. It's really simple. These are publicly visible right now, but they will be hidden. They're just so that way we can see things during debugging. But it's basically what rooms we came from and what were the connected rooms, so we know what to shut off when we are hiding previous rooms. Door to close is basically the entrance door. It's the door that once we trigger will close. And then the current room is the name of the current room. That one's just for debugging purposes as now. So that's basically it. The point is the persistent map will basically, let me shut off the other level. The persistent map starts up, spawns in our static room, which is our room start. As you go into the next room, the door opens, nothing's happening, nothing's connected, so we eject, we're still here. Once we trigger, our door will close, other rooms will spawn, and then we're now allowed to go on, and that will continue indefinitely. Pretty simple. So let's go through the code. The biggest code is our room manager. Here's our room manager, and it's not actually that big for what we're doing. Our key event is going to be our spawning the exit rooms. Basically, since we are loading and unloading, everything's going to get reset back to scratch once we load up our new level. So if you wanted to customize this, basically you could have something in the spawning event or the visible event to set up the room. Maybe you have 5 positions that could hold 5 random monsters, so that way each time the room is spawned, you have it the same but different. So you would want to do that in like the spawning area for each room. So spawning the exit rooms. Have we done this? Yes or no? We move on to the next section. We clear out any of our connected arrays just to be safe. We clear out our spawnable rooms. This is a variable that holds what rooms are valid to be connected. And then we go and append the exit levels, which was our list of rooms that were valid to be connected. So now we have an array that is full of good, valid rooms that we want to connect. And then we shuffle it so we get a random order each time. Now we have our primary loop, but you'll notice we don't actually use a loop here. Loading stream level and unloading stream level, see the little time icon here? It means it'll be run basically asynchronously. It's not going to block the game while it's doing its thing. Which means if we had a loop here, everything else will run at the same time and the completed event will fire before we may have even loaded a streamed level. So we make a fake loop. This is pretty simple. We basically, which room are we spawning right now? Well, which room we spawn is just a little helper function I made, which basically finds our current loop iteration, whichever room we should spawn right now, 0, 1, 2, 3, going through a loop, and then returns me the name. It just makes it easier. Instead of having all this, I just collapsed it into a nice little pure function. So which room do we need to spawn? It's going to take the first room in our first one. And we go ahead and we set it to load. Once it's done loading, we call the function align the entrance to the exit on that room. We use blueprint interfaces to connect the level blueprints, to connect the room managers. It's kind of a little convoluted to say, but basically each level blueprint knows which room manager is assigned to it. So each level knows which room manager controls it. But we need to talk to the level blueprint in order to actually know that. So we use the new 4.9 feature of blueprint interfaces to talk to the level blueprints to pass along that information. So basically, room 1 room manager talks to room 2's level blueprint and tells it to tell its room manager to do something. So the level blueprint basically acts as a conduit between the two room managers, because we can't directly talk to the room managers, so we just pass it through the level blueprint. So we tell it to align the entrance to the exit, which basically is a function here that basically makes sure we have a valid entrance anchor, which we always should. And if we do, have we aligned it or not? We don't want to keep realigning. If we have not, then we basically set the actor transform of our entrance anchor. Remember, in our levels, if I was to go over here, all of our levels are basically parented to one item, the entrance anchor. So whatever we do with that entrance anchor, everything follows through because it's a child. So we are taking that entrance anchor and aligning it to the exit, which we've passed along. In our function here, we're passing along the exit anchor that we want to go to. So basically, 3 exit anchors, exit anchor 1, 2, and 3. We're going to load up the level. We're going to take exit anchor 1, and we're going to take the streaming level's entrance and align it to exit anchor 1. And then we'll do it for the next one, and we'll do it for the next one. And we'll repeat for every possible exit anchor that you have. So, after we've aligned it, we go ahead and we add this name of this room to the connected rooms, so we know which room we spawned. Then we check to see if we're done spawning or not yet. If we are done spawning, for example, we had 3 exits and we've gone through the loop 3 times, we're done. If not, we increment our loop. So now we're on loop 2 out of 3, for example, and it just goes all the way back to start up again. Once we're actually done, then we go ahead and we spawn the exit rooms. And I think I realized I made a mistake in here. Yes, I forgot to do something. This would explain why I randomly had an error. Let me go ahead and fix this right now. We have our spawnable rooms right here. And if you may have noticed, we are not removing from the spawnable rooms the room that we just spawned. I'm guessing this got removed. This remove got removed at some point on accident. And we need to go ahead and fix that. So let's fix it right now while we're on recording. So after we've added, we're going to go ahead and remove from our spawnable rooms. Oh, this is all a mess. Let's move this down. Okay, so after we've added the name of the room that we just spawned, we need to remove from our list that name, which is going to be our which room to spawn right here. There we go. Okay, so now it should be fixed. So after we've gone ahead, let's comment this, move spawned room. There we go. Okay, so I had a random bug that I couldn't track down, and we've just gone ahead and solved it. So after we've gone ahead and added the name of the room that we just connected, we need to remove it from the applicable spawnable rooms array, so we don't try and respawn that room again and end up with a hole in one of our we don't end up with a hole, basically. We don't want to take that one room and put it in 3 different places, because that won't fail because we only have one room. So after that's done, we're done spawning. Once we've actually spawned everything, we tell it, okay, we've spawned all the exit rooms, and then we go in and we pass the connected rooms to the new rooms. Let's say we made 3 rooms. Each of those rooms need to know what was behind them, so that way once we walk into them, they can remove it. And we just use this blueprint interface function to pass along to each of our new rooms, our connected rooms away. We go room 1. Here's what rooms were connected to you. Here's what room you currently are, so it knows the name of it. And then here's the previous room that was connected to you. It needs to know these things so that way when it is removing the previous rooms, it doesn't remove itself, because technically it was a previous room. So we finished that up, and that part is done. We've aligned it. We've spawned it. We've passed it along. This right here is the passing the connected rooms. And we go ahead and we set what rooms we came from. We determine which rooms are behind us, which room we are, and we add the prior rooms so that way we keep track. And that's basically it. That will continue on indefinitely. This is the room trigger event that I have set up over here. Basically, if it's the player, yes or no. If it is, we animate the door, and animating the door is pretty simple. It's just a timeline. That should be pretty simple. Basically, have we triggered the door or not? get the location of the door, assign it to an offset, and lerp it over our time, which is 2 seconds. And we animate the door. It's nothing abnormal. If you need more information on this, check out the using the lerp video. So after we animate the door, we wait 2 seconds. I do this so that way the animation matches. You don't have to do this. You can immediately go ahead and set the next rooms up. It's personal preference. These are areas that are all set up generically so they can be customized. So after that, we now have our fake loop. Basically, we set our count to 0. This is identical to what we did for streaming, except this time we're going to unload. Figure out what rooms we came from. Determine if it's the room we currently are in. If so, we don't want to unload it because then we'd fall to our death. If it is a different room, we go ahead and unload it. Then we continue on. We make sure we adjust the length of the rooms we check the length, see if we've unloaded them all. If we haven't, we go to the next one. If we have, we spawn the exit rooms, which we've already seen here, and it's an endless loop. Spawn the exit rooms, tell the exit rooms where they came from, and wait. Once we trigger, we go ahead and remove the previous rooms, spawn the next exit rooms, and we wait. And it's a loop. It's a circle. And that's all we do. So like I said, going through the actual rooms itself, we come in, we close the door, we spawn the next rooms, we snap the rooms together. We go through, we close the door, spawn the next rooms, snap the next rooms together. And it repeats indefinitely. Everything could work properly because they are based on the location of snapping. So this orb here will snap to this orb here. So as long as your doors are the same sized or similar and your snapping are in the correct positions, it's just like taking Legos and dropping them on top of each other, or connecting puzzle pieces where you have the little round part that connects right into the other round part. And that's it. Let's go through the other stuff. We have just a generic player interface with nothing in it. It's a way to cheat and see if you are a player. We have room interfaces, which are just 2 ways to pass through. Let's actually connect this one to level pass through. There we go. Which are just 2 ways to basically room manager to new room and letting that new room's manager know, hey, you're good to go. Our actual level blueprints is kind of important in each of our rooms. We basically have 2 things. This one is the pass through for lining the entrance. It passes it from the previous room to the new room manager. And then the same thing, the passing and the connected. We're taking it right here. Imagine this is the room manager in room 1. We spawn room 2. The room manager in room 1 tells room 2's level blueprint to pass this information over to level 2's room manager, and it sets it. So like I talked about earlier, we were using the level blueprints to pass information. This is how we do it. It's new to 4.9. It allows us to use blueprint interfaces, which you can see here. We have a blueprint interface on our level blueprint, and this one is identical in every single one of the rooms that we go to. And I'm pretty sure that's it. I have my door blueprint, which we walked through earlier. It's just simply a door mesh with 2 things. If we walk into it, whether we animate it or not, whether it's opening or closing. Nothing abnormal here. This is just animating based on hitting a trigger. So that's good to go there. And that's it. Now, one thing you may run into. This actually stumped me for days until I accidentally figured it out this morning. Let's say we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new level. So we'll set up an empty level here. Now, like I said, we need the manager. So we'll go ahead and put a manager in. We need starting and ending anchors. So that's not a problem. And let's say we wanted to make a simple level, and we'll drop a cube in here. We'll resize the cube. We'll move him back to 0. And let's say we wanted, this is our entrance. Let's say we wanted our entrance here, and let's say we wanted our exit to be here. This is perfectly fine. Just imagine, you know, we have no walls, but that's not a big deal. And then we'll go ahead and move the room manager here. Move this down for our entrance. This would be smarter so we can actually see things here. Top, focus, move it over a little bit, move it over a little bit, right, move it down a little bit. Now it's at least looks semi-realistic. So here's the problem we're going to run into. We want our entrance anchor to be our primary object and everything else to be under it as a child, so when we rotate it. Now if you notice, I take my cube and I try to drag it, it's not going to let me attach my cube to my entrance anchor. And I couldn't figure it out, and I finally did. The problem is our cube is marked as static. It's not movable. You have to have a movable object in order for it to be movable. It seems kind of silly, but that's the problem I ran into. So you need to make sure that any items underneath your anchor is flagged as movable if it has that option, or else it will not be able to go under it and it won't parent it. And if you were to move your anchor, for example, and rotate it, there you go, it needs to rotate. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing that. You may run into that issue. Other than that, I don't think I ran into anything else. My recommendation, if you want to try using this system, once you get a good room set up as your base, like for example, I have my room 1 as my base, just go ahead and crash the system. Wow. I run into a lot of crashes with streaming levels, I've noticed, when you're using the same type of stuff through them. What I try to do is start up a new level, make sure it's empty before you work with any rooms or any levels. So like for example, what I was going to say is take your good room, duplicate your good room, name it whatever you want, and save it, and then start working out of your duplicate. That way things like, for example, your level blueprint stuff is all set up and ready to go. You kind of have your doors all set up in the right positions. Your managers are set up and linked to their properly entrances and exits. And your anchors are all appropriately set up. And you just need to change, like, you know, I'd want to change this to room 1. And change my layout and do stuff like that. And that allows you to have like a template base level that you could then use to do all your other rooms for your streaming. And that's it. That was a little project that I worked on over the day that someone requested. Hopefully it gives you the basics of how to communicate back and forth. If you notice, there was not a lot of code to actually handle this stuff. It's just thinking about the logic and then using the cheap little technique that we used to use in Unity, basically having a master object that everything's parented to, that once you rotate, move, or align that object, everything else goes with it. And it's a great way to do stuff like this where you need to move an entire room. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free below. And of course, all of the source will be available on the GitHub in the links below as well.